Hello, Jessica here with Crochet It Creations, and we are on week 7 of the Textured Fun Blanket Crochet Along, and I'm going to show you how to construct the squares together. So as you can see, I have the finished blanket here that has been in most of my photos. There is 2 options to get it constructed together. So for this option, I slip stitched the squares together, but for the option I'm going to show you on video, we're going to mattress stitch each square together. So let's first talk about the squares. So once you're finished with the squares, you do want to take and either wet block them or you can steam block them. You can steam block with a steamer, or you can use your iron and use the steam option. So basically blocking, a lot of the squares will curve and curl a little bit. So blocking will allow them to lay flat, especially the Celtic stitch and the braided cable stitch. Those both typically have a lot of curl to them. And also blocking allows each square to be about the same size. As you can see, they're about 7 inches. This is Big Twist yarn from Joann's. This is Hobby Lobby. I love this yarn. As you can see, it's about the same size. So blocking allows the squares to lay flat, gives it a nice look for when you sew them together. So I highly suggest to not skip that step. I know a lot of people want a shortcut. They want to hurry up and get their project done, but I really recommend to make sure you block before you sew together. So what I had done is I laid out towels on the floor. I laid each square out and I sprayed them with a bottle of water and then allowed that to dry. And then flip it over, do that to the same side. So it takes about maybe 24 hours or so to get that completed. And then any stubborn areas, so if you have a Celtic stitch or a braided cable stitch that's a little bit more stubborn, the edges are still curling, it's not laying flat, then you might want to take your steamer to that. And do not touch the yarn with your iron though, because it can melt the acrylic. So just use the steam function if you're using your iron, or if you're using a steamer, then try that out. So any questions, you could always message me or post in my Facebook group. A lot of people are working the crochet along at the same time, so hopefully you can get some answers there. So let's talk about this. So in the pattern, I have photos of how to slip stitch together. So basically I laid all my squares out and I just slip stitched all the way across, going through the back loop and the front loop of each square. It does give it some texture and you can kind of have a raised look of each square. So some people like this definition, others want it to be smooth, so it's completely up to you. So just if you're gonna do the slip stitch technique, check out the pattern and see the photos. I just slip stitched all the way across and then I did that this way. So let's move on to the sewing of the squares. So I still have to lay my squares out for the next blanket. So this is a throw blanket size. The other blanket I'm working is a baby blanket. So let's see. So I haven't exactly picked out how I'm going to lay my squares out. But on these I chose 3 colors. And of course I don't want any of the squares to be like, if I don't want, these are post stitches, so I don't want them to be next to each other. So you want it to be nice and mixed up. So I'm going to start off, see, this was square 1, square 2 was the waffle stitch. So let me find the waffle stitch in my pile over here. Here's the waffle stitch. So let me see. Okay, so we're just going to kind of improvise. So let's see, there's that. I think that is turned, yep, the right way. Okay, and then let's see, square 3 with the braided cable. Okay, so I prefer, as you could see on the blanket that I have in the pattern, I prefer my colors to line up diagonally and then the textures to be all mixed up. So the textures don't have any rhyme or reason to it. The colors were lined up diagonally. So then I'll stack like this color on top of that color. And then let's find the navy. And then that color will line up on top of that color. and so on. And this will be a light blue color over here, but let me find one. Oh, here's a Celtic stitch. So anyway, so you could see I line mine up at a diagonal, and I like it like that. But if you look at it from one view, it's line, you can see the diagonal lines, and if you look at it from another side, it just looks all mixed up. All right, now I have my yarn and tapestry needle here. So I've already got this. This is a white eye needle. I've got the yarn that I used. I chose to go with a lighter color of the two. And for demonstration purposes, I'm going to just sew these two together. So you want to line them up. Let me get this where it's centered on the camera. So let's line these up. And I typically will kind of like weave in a few times. So let me go through here. This is how I usually start out. I don't tie a knot. I will just go one way, weaving out, moving the camera. And then I'll go in another way. So there's a couple of different sewing techniques that are used to sew crochet pieces together. I'm using the technique called the mattress stitch. The mattress stitch is where you weave in that way and then in that way. And it goes in and out, and it creates a seamless look. And you'll see as we're working. Another technique you could do is the whip stitch, and that is just where you sew together and around, and you can actually see that. So it might give like a little raised look, or you might see the yarn that you're sewing with. So keep that in mind, which technique you use. I do have posts on crochetitcreations.com for each technique. So keep that in mind. If you want to go see the mattress stitch and you want to see the whip stitch, the difference, there's a post on crochetitcreations.com for both. So and there's videos for both too. So this is the mattress stitch. So I'm here, I've weaved in my ends, I've got my tail secured, and I'm going to line these two up. And I'm going to go, they should be about even, but as far as the stitches across, but they might not be exact, and I'll show you how to get that. So I'm going to go through both loops. You can go through just one, you can go through, it doesn't matter each way, but I'm going to go through both loops and then weave in that way. Pull that tight. So then go into this next stitch. Kind of hard to do this on camera and not have it close to my face to see what I'm doing. So you want to make sure you pull the stitches tight each time. So each time you come back up, pull it tight. Try not to knot your yarn. I cut a very long piece. Let me see if I can. Maybe that'll help for how much I'm pulling through. Okay, so now we're on the left side. We're going to go back across to the right side. I sew a lot of my clothing items that I crochet using this technique. I like how it creates this like seamless look. Like you can't really tell where it was sewn together. Definitely make sure your clothing or your items look more professional. And I will probably just use this color to sew the entire blanket together. So one of the reasons, So this is a baby blanket. The other blanket was a throw blanket. And one of the reasons why I chose to slip stitch it together was because I'm not a fan of sewing. This is very time consuming, but I could say that slip stitching it together really was pretty time consuming as well. So I would suggest to get yourself comfortable in a chair at the table, put your work in front of you, and get it together, because I laid the other blanket out on the floor and I slip stitched horizontal rows. That way it all was together. That way I could lift it up and move it to the couch, and it took a very long time. So just keep that in mind when you're working this. All right. And so I mentioned earlier that these should line up since they're the same. Well, I guess maybe not all of them are the same exact rows. I guess they're not, are they? So it should line up, but it could have an extra row or two on one of the squares because some of them are taller than the other based on what stitches were used. So if you get to the top and you've got one, let me show you. So if you get like up here to the top and you notice this is like way tall and this is way down here, then you'll have to start skipping some of these stitches, and I promise it will not be noticeable. So say this was taller than this and I needed to skip some stitches because I needed to shorten it, then you can, and plus this will all kind of like work out too, but you can definitely skip a stitch. So say that was taller, well, I went into that one, and say I needed this to be shortened, I would skip this stitch and go into this one. That's not really my case so far, but just letting you know that you can do that and you will not notice it. Same with while you're slip stitching together. If you're going to slip stitch, you can definitely skip a stitch, get them all lined up, and you will not notice. So as you can see, this is kind of like, it'll work out when I sew it across there though. All right, well, this is the mattress stitch. So go ahead and get to sewing your squares together. If you have any questions, like I said, just reach out. Definitely a good way to reach me and others is in my Facebook group. There's a lot who are posting in there and working the crochet along. So go find that on Facebook, Crochet It Creations. It's on my Crochet It Creations page. It's pinned to the top, the group is. So just ask to join there and I will give you an approval. So, all right, I hope you have enjoyed the Textured Fun Crochet Along. Next week is going to be week 8 where we add a border. So we are wrapping up and next week is the last week. So hope you have learned some new techniques and crochet stitches that you've never done before. And I hope you check out more of my patterns in the future. So there's plenty on crochetcreations.com for free. So talk to you again soon. Bye.